Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3. Let's get some more. Have it in. Get some more. Let's get some more.
All right, welcome to this week's edition of My Whiskey Den. We have Ben and Mike as we always do, but today we are welcoming the Blaum brothers from Galena, Illinois, Matt and Mike from Blaum Brothers Distilling. Thank you guys for showing up tonight. Thank you both of you for showing up. Usually we only take one person and eat up their night, but we'll take both of you. We'll take both of your night time tonight.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're kind of a package deal, so it works out better that way.
I dig it. And you guys both have like kind of pretty unique personalities. Before we get going, I want to say thanks to Ice House Mash and Drum, YT4, Jeff Schwartz, Nathan Clark, a couple other people in the chat. If I missed you, my apologies. But what is everyone out there drinking, and what is everyone on the stream drinking tonight or right now?
I got the Blaum Brothers bourbon.
I got some of the Blaum Brothers rye. I'm drinking water, but I'm going to sneak away at some point and get something.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm being honest.
No. That's you don't have to have anything. Oh, jumping in the new riff.
New riff single barrel by our buddy Matt Rewalt.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just popped it tonight.
I was gonna say we had one of those on before, and they are pretty tasty. And there's a couple other like releases coming out or just came out, so we're interested in them too. But
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Andrew's having a Blaum Sazerac. That sounds pretty tasty. I did see that that you guys are putting those out, so that is awesome. Let me swing back up here. All right. Now, we usually kind of start the show kind of spinning back in time to kind of ask you questions like, it could be a whiskey, it could basically what spirit or beer, what kind of got you turned on to drinking in the first place? We know that sounds like an alcoholic question, but it is kind of what inspires people to go down a path. So we're, kind of what kind of kicked off the whole kind of excitement with spirits for you guys.
I mean, everybody gets excited about spirits when they're in college, I guess you could say. But the first thing that I'd say we both really got into to where it's past just drinking, right? It's kind of learning about how it's made and really getting geeky with it was single malt Scotch whiskey, honestly. That's kind of the first spirit we both geeked out about. We would, buy each other bottles. We were living in different areas of the country, and that's really what did it, just learning about it, reading about it, being in all these online groups. I'd say that's how we got our start.
Yeah, and
it's kind of weird. In the sense that a lot of people who get into bourbon, some of them eventually get into Scotch. It's usually the direction it goes, and we just oddly enough went about it the backwards way.
Yeah.
So.
And am I right? You guys are part of the the American Single Malt Commission? Is that it?
Alliance, I think. No, is it the commission? Yeah, it's a commission. We're part of it. We're probably the only distillery part of it that has been making malt whiskey but hasn't released any. We have some that's over 6 years old now, so we're still just kind of letting that go.
That was actually going to be my question. I haven't seen the release of it.
Pet project, we have a few spirits that are pet projects that we don't really put on the forecast necessarily as far as when they're going to be released. We just kind of let them go and we release it when it's ready. Okay, well, so we brought malted barley in from the UK, just trying to double pot distillation, trying to do it as traditional as possible.
Oh, that's cool. But that was just what I was saying, because I'm like, I know I saw you guys on the list because we were talking to Cullen Keegan last week, and I was looking at everyone on it, and I'm like, I haven't seen the release from you guys. I was wondering if you guys, were sitting on it or something was in the works, because it does usually kind of take a little bit longer to get some of that out for most people. So that's totally believable. Now, you guys are in Galena, Illinois, which is kind of like a smaller town. What is the distilling history in Galena?
It is a small town. It's 3,400 people. So, when we were moving here, I had a few friends from, Arizona, the West Coast. It's at 3,400 people. You guys even have a McDonald's? But we have a McDonald's, and, we have a McDonald's. We have a Piggly Wiggly, which is amazing. But we have like 40 restaurants in town because the town, obviously being such a tourism-heavy town, we get roughly 1.5 million tourists every year. So
that's awesome for the size that is. Because
for the size of the town, it's pretty crazy. So it's a really cool town. And Mike, you know a little bit more. I mean, we both know about the distilling history, but Mike knows a little more detail on the dates because there was a distillery back in here in Galena.
Back in the 30s.
It was called Joe Davies County. Yeah, in the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
We joke about it sometimes. I don't know if many places still use this, but I remember, one of the first couple shows, like at Distill America, for example, you go and start talking to a booth and they're like, we're the first distillery in, pick a city, pick a small town since Prohibition, first one since Prohibition. Not like that really mattered, but we joked about it for a while saying we're the second distillery in Galena since Prohibition. Because, there's a distillery here that opened after Prohibition. Seeing as how this is near the Mississippi River, there is a lot of history about illicit distillation in the area. So it was being done, but then Prohibition ended. The Volstead Act opened up the doors, and a local distillery was making a hooch back then. And we joke about that too, saying people back then just wanted to get drunk because we have some old bottles of it from the 30s, and you look at the back and it says aged 6 months. So,
honestly, back then there weren't a lot of dudes sitting around talking about the notes they were getting from it. I mean, back then it was, medicinal in the sense that people were just, just drinking it to get drunk.
It's medicinal, but this one's at 63% alcohol.
That's right.
Only aged a couple months, which is totally believable. Now, you guys both had pretty successful jobs before you guys decided to start this distillery. I don't know if you want to share what they were, but was there a turning point that you guys could nail down that you guys both decided that you wanted to leave those pretty well-established jobs to do this, not as a hobby, but actually as a living?
It was a tough one because a lot of times you hear other stories and they're like, I hated my job. I wanted to leave it and do this. And honestly, I mean, I think I speak for both of us, but I loved my job. It's just I like doing this more. I worked for the National Security Agency. I got to live in some really cool places. It was fun. And I'd be doing that probably till I retire if I didn't leave to do this. And Matt was running nuclear pharmaceutical companies, providing, diagnostics and radioactive isotopes to hospitals and all that. And really, we had joked about it for a while. Once a lot of these craft distilleries started popping up, you would see so-and-so doing it and realize they have no background in this. And you kind of say, if they can figure it out, I can figure it out. And really the turning point when we had joked about it for a while is we were both at Disney World with our families, back in 2012, and somebody gifted bourbon and it was horrible. And we were sitting by the pool till like 3 a.m. and I think we ended up drinking the whole bottle between us anyway. And by the end of that, we're like, damn it, we're gonna open up this distillery. And we were probably still drunk the next morning. Yeah. We probably drunk this still the next morning. We did. I think we were probably a little hungover at Animal Kingdom that day, but it stuck.
Disney
with us,
will make you drink too.
Disney will make you drink. So that was April 2012, and we opened December 2013.
that's pretty fast for getting set up and everything. That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. But we were always close growing up. It was just the two of us. There was no other siblings. So we'd always had talked about doing something together. We've been close our whole life, and we always wanted to do something together, but NSA, nuclear pharmacy, there was no overlap at all. So whiskey was our overlap. And once we that light bulb went on, we're like, there are other people that are making whiskey don't have this long history in whiskey. And it was like, that's it. We both love whiskey. Let's go. So, that's kind of what brought us together on this.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that kind of think that way. Once you kind of get stuff moving, you're like, I think, well, like you said, we had some that wasn't very good, and you're like, I think we can do better than this. And at least you guys have a background of hard work and stuff to kind of lay that down. So even if that, with you not knowing it, you guys could tell you were going to be well vested into getting into it and understanding it. So
that was kind of the thing, being both of us being complete whiskey nerds first. We were both going to a bunch of distilleries, and with any hobby, once you start to get into something, you want to get into it even further. So we got to that point where we were trading bottles and scotch, bourbon, trading bottles back and forth, and then it's like, well, why do I like this one and I don't like this one? So we started to read a little bit, and then before you knew it, we kind of knew a lot about distilling. So it was kind of that odd, almost false sense of education on the matter, and we're like, yeah, let's do it. At the time, we look back to when we were sat around that pool, and we're like, let's open a distillery. I mean, come on, it was just a crazy decision, but we luckily we're both close, so all of our decisions are kind of made together, and it's worked out awesome.
And it does kind of seem like you guys are kind of like a family distillery. Like a lot of people in both families seem to be involved in the project. Am I right about that? I think
absolutely.
Wives and stuff. More daughters. I thought more wives, but I just mean it's not just the two of you. It has become a family affair, is trying to produce and kind of get people in and kind of spread the name and everything, which usually takes over with a lot of smaller distilleries or craft distilleries. But I've also seen it work negatively when you're working with family. So you guys all seem to be working pretty well together. So
we shared a tiny office for 3.5 years. I'm not sure how we did that, but we managed.
You didn't kill each other yet?
No, not yet.
Well, and you guys, with a lot of the descriptions of your whiskeys, and the distillery itself, you guys kind of poke fun at traditional marketing. You guys kind of brought it up before, how you kind of make fun of buzzwords and kind of phrases that the industry uses, which I kind of like your original disclaimer about how we're not, Al Capone didn't run our distillery. We don't have ties to this and that. And when you guys put out your Nodder bourbon, which I think is an awesome name. I think you guys have awesome names for stuff when you're bringing it out, because just blatantly out front, we're sourcing this. We're obviously not doing this ourselves. Let's not get confused, but we still think this is delicious. But I just love how very upfront you guys are with some of the stuff that you're doing. What kind of led you guys down the path to being honest like that, but also have a little bit of an urge, like I said, to poke fun at the industry standards?
Well, we have a dumb sense of humor, right? I mean, and honesty is an important virtue, and frustrating going to some of these shows and just having so many places tap dance, saying, I don't know. There are some examples I could get into, but you know what I'm talking about. People just wanted to, it was smoke and mirrors, and that's not us. We don't want to pretend our grandfather had some secret recipe. We're an open book. We show everybody what we do, and I don't know, just feels natural.
It's kind of, when we got into this, we didn't have any plan. Honestly, having a sourced bourbon was never part of our business plan. It was just never even something we, honestly, at the time, it wasn't that we were against anybody else doing it. It just wasn't part of our plan. We're whiskey guys, and we knew we were going to make vodka and gin and be proud of those products. But really, at the very beginning, those were helping us fund whiskey production, and filling up barrels. So because we're doing it all big barrels, long age time. So we knew if we need to wait, we're going to need to, make other products. And honestly, we had no plans to source, but a deal came across our laps, and it was like, all right, well, this is really good juice. I mean, we tried the bourbon and fell in love with it, and we're like, how can we not do this? And instantly, we said, if we're going to do it, how are we going to be, transparent about it? There was never any question about that. That's just who we are, So we said, let's be transparent, but let's screw around with it a little bit, have fun with it. So, that's kind of, it was, we had a few names like Nodder, a few, I wish I could remember what other names, but it wasn't until we were on the whiteboard and we saw the NOT and Nodder and the OUR and bourbon, and it said not our, and it was like, oh my God, that's it. So it just worked out well. And, now we have retired that line and we're on our own 2 feet with our bourbon and our rye. So it's the planets just keep aligning in that regard. I love to say this was all our original business plan 7 years ago, but it's not. It just, it evolved, and we've evolved since the beginning too.
Yeah. When you take advantage of stuff as it happens, like you said, it kind of comes across. And I think I know there's a couple places in Wisconsin that are at least honest about them sourcing, and they'll be like, well, I'm not going to have anything for 2 years. But in whiskey, like gin or vodka or something else, yeah, we'll have that, no big deal. But right now, this is the way it is, and if people like this, maybe we'll keep it on, maybe we'll cut it out as we release our own stuff. But it's a stepping stone to get to where we want to be. So I think you got to take advantage of those situations. So
Yep.
So are you guys making your dream whiskey yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we well, it's a weird, I guess, genesis in that what we have coming out now is, amongst the first stuff we ever made, and we've never been ones to say, okay, this is our first time making it, nailed it, we're just going to do it this way. We've been tweaking it along the way, and for the better. I'm confident about that. And tasting our stuff as it hits 5 and 6 years old is just really exciting. And we have our standard bourbon and rye, but we're also, we have for the past 4 or 5 years been laying down some things, a very small amount of wheated bourbons and high corn content rye that we're saving for, at least the 8 to 12 year mark. So we have some fun things, we mentioned the malt whiskey too, that we like to make and then hide somewhere and forget about it, and then occasionally we're moving barrels around. It's like, oh shit, that one's 6 years old. That's cool. So
it's always nice when you come back.
You'd be surprised how often that happens.
Or you thought he had an extra barrel of something else. Like, no, this is not what we thought it was. That's sweet. Jeff Schwartz from the chat asked, is it true that the Blaum brothers evicted a bunch of Mormons from their church so they could distill?
Partially true. Partially true. Evicted is a strong word. No, the building we're in, actually, a portion of it used to be the Mormon Church of Galena. So it had a couple businesses in it, but right before we were there was indeed the Mormon Church in the building. That's our barrel room now.
But if you're into Scotch whiskey, you'll appreciate that we now call it the Church of Latter-day Saints instead of Saints.
Nice. I see you guys have a number of special releases with these Madeira cask finishes. What drew you to using Madeira cask? Is that like a personal favorite you guys really like, or how did that come to be?
We just wanted to experiment, honestly. I think we had probably had a Scotch whiskey that was finished in Madeira, and probably what would it have been, like a Balvenie Madeira? I think they had done one, and just thought it would be fun to start experimenting. We finished bourbon in Madeira. We finished it in sherry. We still have good reminder. We still have a 12-year-old Old Fangled that was finished in sherry casks that we haven't released yet. But all of that stuff, we just kind of like doing these little experimental one-offs, again, passion projects, and see if they're a hit or not, and maybe we bring it back if it is.
So about how many barrels do you guys kind of lay down in a year?
Probably 200 to 250. We're trying to up that.
That's pretty decent.
It's not gigantic, but we kind of go at it when we're able to, and
and
I wish we could lay down more, but I also like the size we are right now. I not really wanting to run out and get a column still. Just kind of we like the pot distillation and having fun with it.
And especially with like Heather was mentioning, you guys have done a lot of honorable stuff with the pandemic. I'm sure with hand sanitizer she's referring to. I'm sure that's eaten up quite a bit of your time as well too, kind of adding that to the repertoire of things you guys are producing.
The learning curve especially, just it's shrouded in so many regulations. We're already very familiar with working within certain regulations, but now all of a sudden it's the FDA and all these other and putting something out there. We can't make medical claims, but people are using it for a specific reason that we all know. So just making sure we're able to source the right and the best ingredients, and it's been a learning curve, but yeah, it's for a good cause. So juggling that with our normal production has just been something we've dealt with.
Well, you guys are doing a very good job of it. Just on when you mentioned the grains and stuff, where do most of your grains come from for the whiskeys that you guys are making?
We get basically all of our grains are other than the malted barley that I mentioned. Our corn and rye and wheat are all grown by a single farmer that's just southwest of Rockford, Illinois. So
it's pretty close.
We used to source it from different farms in the area, but we have somebody who's passionate about it and works with us, and we know we could get grain from all these other places. I mean, some of the big distilleries bring in rye from Europe, and maybe some are better, maybe some are worse, but we want it to be an Illinois whiskey. So we want it to taste like it would have tasted back in the day. Really, they were not sourcing rye from Germany back in the early 30s, I would imagine. So we're just trying to do it that way.
So the vodka.
You're talking about regulations earlier.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
They were hitting on regulations earlier. I saw where you guys were tackling a certain law there in Illinois that limits the volume craft distillers can sell directly. How's that going?
I figured Matt was going to answer that, and I thought he was sleeping, but it looks like he froze.
He might have froze up for a second. I thought the same thing too. Like he closed his eyes and he was playing us for a second. Put up like one of those little.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll cut back in a second.
Yeah. So that is something we were heavily involved with the Illinois Craft Distillers Guild, and we, as a distillery, especially because we rely so much on tourist traffic, and we could only sell, including in cocktails and then bottles at the distillery, we could only sell up to 2,500 gallons per year. And we were hitting that mark and having to pull bottles off the shelf toward the end of the year. And it's just kind of ridiculous. Like the state of Illinois not wanting to get tax money, and telling a small business you have to stop doing business. And it was just an artifact of some lobbying and agreements that big distribution had with. And it was just kind of antiquated. And we got that, with the help of the guild and everybody working together, we got that number doubled. So now we can sell up to 5,000 gallons on site. And of course, we can do as much as we want through distribution.
Now, do you have any other goofy rules, like you can only buy like 2 bottles when you show up, like Texas has?
Nah.
Good.
No, we give you a discount if you buy a case. You know, it's no. We luckily we don't have to deal with that. I know some states are like you can only buy up to 4 bottles per year per person, and how the hell are you supposed to, track that?
Exactly.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. That's like here in South Carolina. They just recently had allowed distilleries to provide tastings at the distillery. Previously that wasn't even allowed. State, you hit some crazy laws that make things difficult.
When we started building the distillery, you couldn't even have a bar in the distillery, and they actually changed that law as we were building it out. We had planned to keep half of the building with tenants in it, and they changed the law, and we're like, well, we're going to need to put a bar, and a bar meaning we can only serve things that we make there, so we don't have, we can't have Campari or what have you. But that was a game changer, having that revenue and having a place for locals and tourists to come and hang out and have a few cocktails. It's been good.
And we're
So
back.
the vodka, your vodka and gin that you make.
You guys all done now?
Yep.
Your vodka and gin. Were you guys vodka and gin guys, or have you turned into that, or is it just still kind of a necessary evil?
I don't think we've. That's the thing. I don't think either of us have ever been vodka guys. Gin guys, yeah, we've gotten into some gins. There are a lot of cool gins out there, and that's one of those fun products where you can do a lot of cool shit with gin. You can, whether you're macerating and distilling right in the pot or hanging a botanical basket, and obviously thousands of botanicals to choose from. So there's some art to gin, and we've both gotten into that quite a bit. But then there are the vodka people that are just straight up vodka snobs, love vodka, and so we take our vodka seriously because of that, and I mean, yeah, sure, every once in a while we'll have a cocktail with. Nah, it's a lie. We don't ever drink. Mike and I don't drink vodka. I was trying to like, oh yeah, vodka, but we don't ever drink vodka.
Sure.
But that's the only flavored product we've ever done, and probably will ever do. People are always, oh, you can do a flavored whiskey or a flavored this or that. We have the Hellfire vodka, which is habaneros, jalapenos, and peppercorn, and
we hate calling it flavored too.
Yeah, we don't like calling it flavored because we've had flavoring companies come to us a bunch of times and saying, "Hey, we could duplicate that flavor with a chemical." But the whole way it started was very organic, and we had a Bloody Mary bar at the distillery. We had vodka, and we can only have our own vodka in Illinois. We can't have other products, so we're like, oh, this kind of sucks. We kind of need some variety, So we got this giant mason jar and filled it with our vodka and cut up fresh jalapenos, habaneros, and peppercorn, soaked them in a few days, put it out there, and we had 2 bottles of it, and people just gobbled it up. The next week, we put in 4 bottles of it. Next week, it was 8 bottles. Suddenly, we're like, you know what? Let's just make it and see what happens. And it's become like a crazy cult following product. We sell piles of it, and it's good. It makes an awesome Bloody Mary. But we still do it that same way.
You guys have experimented with that too. Ghost pepper?
Yeah. We still cut up all the peppers. We still do it that same way. We did do one batch, the Hellfire Spectrum, we called it.
Spectrum,
which was ghost pepper, and it was actually really good. It's if you get it just right, there's almost this fruity sweetness to it, which we got. It was awesome.
Yep.
We should probably do that again. A lot of people like that one.
That sounds delicious. If you're gonna do a vodka, that's what I think a lot. You guys geared it towards what I would aim towards is exactly like a Bloody Mary, because that's where a lot of people will use it. And it sounds like you just pour that in, and you don't need too much other stuff added to it to kind of make it pop. That's awesome.
Yeah, and since then we've actually introduced our own Bloody Mary mix because people like the Hellfire so much. Honestly, we would have never done the mix had we not done Hellfire. If we had just had vodka, we probably would have never done the mix. But Hellfire became its own thing, it just became this thing that people love, and Benny's sells piles of it in Chicago, all over the place it sells. So that's why we decided to do a Bloody Mary mix to go along with it.
Is it all pre-mixed, or do you have to like add in your vodka afterwards?
Yeah, so people can come to the distillery right now and buy, the kind of the kit. Right now, especially during this pandemic, we're doing a kit that has, for $35, people can buy a bottle of the Hellfire vodka. It has our Bloody Mary mix, a jar of stuffed olives, 2 tour passes, and an 8-ounce bottle of hand sanitizer.
That's pretty damn decent.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
We had Mike out in the chat. He wanted to know about a little about the rum you guys are making. I hadn't looked into that too much, but
we're not making.
Are you good? No, okay. Well,
no, I'm just kidding. No, I'm joking.
I didn't even look at that part of the page to see if there was rum. I just saw whiskey and vodka.
No, it's kind of like some malt whiskey. That's a passion project, and
it's not on the website.
It's nearly 3 years old, and it's we're going for a real high character, kind of funky rum, and we don't talk about it too much. Just not because we're hiding anything, just because we don't want to convince ourselves to release it yet, But we're really psyched about it. We're looking forward to that. We might release a white rum later in the year if people are allowed to, come to the distillery again or whatever. Kind of. Yeah, but the age rum is something we're both really looking forward to.
That's cool.
And you wouldn't have seen it on the website because it's not out yet. But once it is out, you probably won't see it on the website for another like 6 months because I do the website, and it usually takes some random like email that comes into us and says, "Hey, do you guys have a straight bourbon?" It's like, oh, yeah. No, come on, probably get on the website, right? So yeah,
I forget that we have a website.
Well, when you're doing all the stuff and trying to keep the distillery moving at the pace you want it to and have everything going there, sometimes like that second tier thing, you're like, no, I didn't think about that. I was focused on here today or for the past month.
Right.
Andrew out in the chat was wondering if you guys ship the kits, or is it just pick them up at the Bloody Mary kits, or does it only pick them up at the distillery?
Yeah, it's only pick them up. Unfortunately, Illinois is one of the states we're not allowed to ship, so we can't ship. And honestly, if we did, it would just we get so many requests, and I love that we do, but that would be an entire different arm of our business. I mean, by the amount of requests we get, we'd have to hire a whole another person just to do that. But if it was legal, we'd probably do it.
Yeah. Are they thinking of doing anything like that in Illinois, or is that kind of just being like held down? Because I know other states are starting to push for at least maybe in-state direct shipping. Are they easing up at all, or are they still pretty ironclad with you guys?
They're easing up in some ways. They're allowing us to deliver now. So I guess technically if somebody, in Chicago or Southern Illinois, I guess we could deliver, but I mean, so they're lightening it
to make it worth it.
Right. So they're talking about, there is a movement right now. A lot of the bars in Chicago are pushing hard for the state to allow cocktails to go, like to actually make it, somehow seal it and send that out the door. So who knows? I don't know. Illinois, if we're going to be one of the last states to, to reopen, Illinois is going to look for their tax dollars. So they'll pull something out of their sleeve and, open up some new opportunity for us at some point here.
And they did that here up in Wisconsin, where you could come pick up the mixed drink as long as it was sealed. So there was mason jars had a huge run for about 3 weeks. That was unexpected. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, if that's the way you got to sell it, that's the way you got to sell it.
That's actually funny. Mike, probably neither of us have thought about it. So you just said mason jars. We did when we first opened. We did a White Lightning, a moonshine type product just for a hot minute. We didn't do it a long time. It was just something we did. It was kind of fun. So we did mason jars of that, and we had ordered tons of them. And then one day we decided not to do the product anymore. And recently we were at the distillery, like, we have a shit ton of mason jars here. And we were trying to find something to do. So now if this cocktail thing happens, we are set.
Yeah, and it's nice because you just get home and like here you just pop it open and plug in the cheese and celery. Well, I'm not a celery stick. I'm a pickle guy and a Bloody Mary. That's just the way it is. But speaking of the website, Jason had a question. He was wondering if you have any plans to add online merchandise to the website in the future.
Yeah, we're about 6 years behind on that plan, on that online store we're going to do.
We like talking about it.
We love talking about it. Again, that's one of those things, the sheer amount of requests we get. We could obviously we could sell a lot of product online, but it's a whole nother headache, with the shipping and all that. So we do have a couple employees now that don't have as much to do because of this pandemic that could work on that project. So I think we're probably honing in on an online store within the next 2 weeks. I think we'll definitely have something up in the next 2 weeks. It'll be limited, like 4 or 5 products, a couple shirts, couple hats, something like that. We have face masks now that people want. So
2 weeks in Blum time means 4 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. When I say 2 weeks, expect it in late fall.
When you guys were talking about the face mask, you guys changed your logo recently. I'm just going to pop it up on the screen. And is that what's going to be on the face mask? Because I thought that was awesome. Just like you guys both added them to yourselves in the 6 foot distance. Another kind of great move in marketing. I just thought it was great.
The awkward thing is I've had that tattooed on my back for the past 3 years. So it's convenient that it works out now for all of this.
If I can find it, I'll show you. We're actually going to be putting up or we're going to start selling a shirt that is kind of like that. If I can find it, I'll find it for you. I'll share my screen when I do.
That's cool. That's
very cool. All your other creepy things you have open on your computer.
Yeah, I have to be careful with what I put up there.
I have that too. I gotta just make sure I find the right one. Jeff wants to know if he can see the tattoo, and I don't know if you're going to do that. But
Jeff, next time you're at the distillery, you can see all my tattoos.
But he's
all right.
I know I'd heard about you guys like long before, like a few years ago, but I kind of wanted to go back and try you guys again once you guys started doing your own stuff. And when Jeff named this past year, he named you guys like his I think it was his best whiskey of the year. With your rye whiskey, just because it was so unique, and that kind of turned me back around and to leaning towards it to really kind of try it again. And it's not overpowering, but you guys do have some really nice flavors in there that aren't the kind of the standard release that you see from a lot of people. So yes, Jeff, you turned me back onto stuff again. He leads you down a lot of good paths, Jeff. He usually tastes some good stuff and has a pretty honest opinion about what's going on. So we appreciate that from him.
And we only had to pay him $10,000 for that review, and I think it was
it was 8. It was 8.
Oh, you negotiated.
We weaseled him out
it
of that last 2. Yeah.
Now he's upset he lost $2,000. You guys should have just kept that quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Oh.
All right, here's the shirt we're going to put out here within the next couple weeks. That'll be online.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely viable. I dig that one quite a bit.
That's one.
Yeah, that was some of the other stuff that you guys released as far as marketing. I absolutely love. Like, the back of the, I took a couple stickers from Distill America because you're kind of take off on the Wu-Tang Clan where you had the Baum brothers. That was awesome. You guys just have stuff that seems licensed. Well,
we're hoping we get that cease and desist soon. It'd be great press, right?
Well, our intro to the show, I didn't get a response back from the Roots after I tried to contact them for a year, and I just decided we'll float in that 20 seconds and just see how it goes. And we haven't gotten a copyright strike, so we're going to keep it. But some of the stuff you guys are doing is just a lot of times I'll see people selling merch, and it's like merch that would go to people going to like a golf club for the afternoon or something like that. And yours is stuff like I like to go to shows or concerts, and like a lot of the stuff you guys put out, I kind of like equate to kind of that level where it's neat, it has a double meaning, and you're kind of excited to wear the shirt because it's a cool looking shirt rather than just being like, here's a polo shirt with our logo in the corner. So I think you guys do a really good job coming up with ideas in that manner.
Thanks. It's actually funny because it's mainly just I guess I design 99% of our shirts and the little logos and the little Instagram things, and really it just comes down to me wanting to wear a cool shirt. So I just, I'm like, I love Wu-Tang. This would look cool, or Run DMC, whatever. And it's like, I want to wear that shirt.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it's pop culture, but it's like, I want to wear that shirt. So I'm going to make it, and I'm going to get 50 of them. And if they sell, cool. And if not, that's cool too. But usually they sell. So yeah, it's kind of a selfish thing, really. Mike's been wanting me to do like a Yanni t-shirt, like Blum Brothers with a Yanni logo, and we haven't gotten there yet, but I'm still selfish and I do all the ones on.
It's true.
It's true. I think it's true. Oh, that's funny. I'm gonna say Martin Duffy was asking, will you guys offer lots of branded Glencairn glasses with
we appreciate the question. We tend to focus on Riedel glasses. They make, the wine glasses and whiskey tasting glasses.
Or
the neat glasses.
Glass, anything but Glencairn.
What's the other one? We're just kidding. Yeah, no.
See Martin going, you're cutting deep.
Marty's crying right now. No, it's funny, seeing as how we got into Scotch whiskey first, and we'd go to distilleries in Scotland, and that's how we got into Glencairns. Like, we got into Glencairns before it was cool, so to speak.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding, but that was just something we already had 50 of in our house before we even talked about opening a distillery. And it's a damn cool glass, and they have a really cool U.S. sales rep who we became friends with after that on a given day.
Glasses are a little cooler than the rat, right? No, Mike's right. We used to collect those. We collected the glasses for a long time before we ever opened a distillery. So, the day we opened, we both had 40, 50 different Glencairns from Scotland, from the East Coast, from, the Midwest. And so one of the first three things we had on our shelves of the distillery was Glencairns. It was something that's like, it was exciting for us, hey, we're opening a distillery. We got to have our own logo Glencairns, and it was super cool. So we put them out, and then, Marty was involved with Glencairn, and buddy of ours, great guy. So it just like, it's a great relationship. We have a great relationship with Glencairn. They every once in a while they send us some cool stuff, and it's a great company, great family. The Davidson family, great family, great company. Can't say enough good things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they're one of those places that seem to like whoever they have like working for them who has been in the industry a while and is very open to working with everyone and pretty laid back when I first met Martin.
I mean, they've got employees at Glencairn that have been there for 20, 30 years. They've got employees that have been there, a lot of them that have been there for like 2 decades. But it's just a great family and great company. So we're, lucky to be, one of the U.S. distilleries that carries their products.
But once they open up the stream tomorrow in Scotland and hear that I mentioned those other brands, might get some hate mail. We'll see.
So
need to go find my neat glass, right?
What gets you guys excited about whiskey? I mean, what is things with the woods, with the grains, yeast, or anything? What gets you guys thinking about the future, or just get you going with ideas?
Everything you mentioned. I mean, we've never settled on one particular method, or we have over the years experimented with 20 plus different yeast strains, and
cool.
I mean, the first batch of our rye we ever put out at 2 years, called Fever River Rye, that basically came from experiments. We had 8 different yeast strains that went into that. We had a bunch of different barrel types that went into that, and we're constantly doing things like that. Even with the barrels that we get from Independent Stave, typically you think about, are you using a char 3 or a char 4? But we've, for the past 6 years, experimented with doing profile toast that you use in wine to, it has different chemical reactions based upon the intensity and amount of time that it's toasted. And we did a 4-year research study with ISC where they smoked the inside of barrels with different types of wood prior to us filling them, and actually, some of that we've kind of salt and peppered into, the past few rye batches, but we're always experimenting with new things. Like I said, we never have really just hit like, here's our playbook and damn it, this is how we're going to do it forever.
That's kind of the fabric of our company, and and it resonates down to our employees too. Mike and I are very much, if this wasn't in our playbook a week ago, it's cool shit right now because I just thought of it, so let's do it. We're constantly like walking into each other's office and be like, hey, I got an idea, and just go. Because if you're a guy who loves whiskey and you have your own distillery, why wouldn't you play around and do fun, cool shit every once in a while, So we're constantly playing around with things.
Well, that's cool that you're playing with the yeast that much, because I was going to say, we were talking to Alan Bishop the other week, and there's just not a lot of distilleries that necessarily go that deep into like yeast strains where it's like, well, we found our 3, and this is what we use, and this is what we do, and they don't get too in depth, and they can really, even if it's 5-10% that they really might actually change about the whiskey, it can actually, put a nice little curve on it sometimes. So that's awesome that you're doing that.
Well, that's the nice thing about, there are a lot of distilleries, and right or wrong, not calling anybody's baby ugly, but, there are a lot of distilleries that, have big investors or a big company behind them, and there's a bottom line you got to watch. And, Mike and I are definitely less, we obviously need to make money to keep our doors open. That's an obvious thing, but we're less focused on that bottom line and more focused on what we think is cool, and doing something fun and doing something that, experimenting a little bit. So, we'll spend a little extra money to do something really cool and see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, if it pans out or kind of is like a home run, once you get to a point, it's easier to work backwards and be like, this is now coming into the core line in 5-6 years once we could start laying down more barrels of it. But do you guys think of, since it sounds like you're doing a bunch of experiments, do you release them as like a little experimental series every now and then where a couple barrels come out? It might just be like distillery only, but do you release them that way kind of as like, this was like our unique one where we did like you said, like a toasted barrel versus a charred barrel. Excuse me.
Yeah, with our especially so yes, we've had a line called the Galena Reserve line. It's in 375 mLs. It's got a little typed interface, label on it. It's basically all those little projects that Mike and I are like, hey, I got an idea. And that's actually, I think, the only non-whiskey. We've probably had like 10. Is that right, Mike? About 10. The only non-whiskey product we put in that line was that Hellfire with the ghost pepper. We did that one in that line, but the other 9 or 10 of them have all been whiskey, and that's been a lot of it comes from our background in really loving Scotch. In the Scotch world, there's a giant population of the bottles that are finished in a Madeira wine cask or a cognac barrel and something like that. So we've actually put out a bunch of Galena Reserve bottles that have been. We did the Nodder bourbon finished in a Madeira wine cask, finished in cognac, finished in a sherry barrel, finished in a Pedro Jimenez barrel. I don't know. There's some I'm missing there, but the next one kind of
is gin finished in an IPA
double
beer
IPA.
barrel. So it's got kind of a hoppy flavor to it. It's pretty cool.
It's awesome. That's really cool.
That's awesome that you're doing them in the 375s, because then it's like someone could get 2 or 3 of them and be like, here's the base, here's the three other ones. Oh God, Ben or Mike, what was the one that Iron Root's doing when they were racing like that? It's not the Evolution, is it? It's the Revolution barrel. Well, they're producing the whiskey and then they're putting it in 4 different kind of like a Madeira and a couple other release finishing barrels, and then you can buy a set of 4 and see what the hell happened to it across the path. So that's, you guys were already kind of doing something like that, so that's awesome. Just sounds really sweet.
And it just came from us. Just, it's like, let's do these little fun things, and well, do we want to? If it sucks, I think being very self-conscious, we're like, well, if it sucks, do we want to like tarnish one of our brand names? So it's like Galena Reserve was just kind of our little experimentation line, and we have had a lot of success with it. People have dug it. It's been a distillery only. We have snuck out a few cases to some prominent whiskey bars and things, but for the most part, it's been distillery only, and we haven't put one out for quite a while, actually. Now that we're talking about it, we've been waiting on that. We sent our label into the TTB. They came back to us with something, and we're stubborn. We're stubborn, so we dug our heels in and we doubled down and changed some wording to like double the fault, and we've been going back and forth with them for like 6 months. Where, if we had that company saying, "Hey, look at the bottom line," we'd have to have it out like 5 months ago. But we're just pissed off at the TTBs. So.
I quit working for the federal government 8 years ago, and I feel like there's more bureaucracy in this than I had to deal with back then.
We've heard rumors of that from other places where it's almost to the point where I think someone else we had on was like, we'll just, if we really want the label, we'll just submit it 3 times in a row just to see if we get the right goddamn person to say okay.
Because you get somebody else. It's super arbitrary. Like Mike said, I feel like it's more bureaucracy than when I was importing depleted uranium for a nuclear pharmacy. Honest to God, it was easier to do that than to get a goddamn label approved. True story.
That is irritating when someone.
Speaking of bureaucracy, you guys have any plans? Speaking of bureaucracy, you guys have any plans of doing a bottled and bond version of anything?
Probably not. Our first 4-year-old release of bourbon was bottled and bond, but we were too thrifty to make new labels for it. It's kind of, the bottle and bond thing is kind of cool, and we respect it, but it's kind of a talking point. For us, doesn't really matter to us as much, if that makes sense. And it's not something we necessarily wanted to do moving forward, because we want to have the flexibility of blending, right, and blending older barrels with other younger barrels. But we joked about doing single barrel releases and calling those bottled and bond, because all of them are, as long as they're meet the requirements. And we thought we were pretty revolutionary, but there is a mainstream bottle that is a single barrel product that says bottled and bond. There's an E.H. Taylor, I believe, so they beat us to it.
But as you guys have already kind of figured out, we're not into the. And I'm not saying bottle and bond is marketing fluff, but we're not into those additional things. We're very much let the liquid do the talking. It's kind of what we're more about, and also we're thrifty. Like Mike said, we didn't want to spring for it. Like the old fangled Nodder bourbon bottles. There were several that were, several batches that were 13 years old that the label said 12, because we're like, I don't want to buy new labels just because it turned 13, so we just set it out as 12. So there's a lot of
that's it. That, like you're saying, that could be an added headache just by adding the extra year if someone else doesn't like it now that you have the year on it. You're like, well, it's the exact same fucking label we put out last year. We have it, and it's okay. But now all of a sudden, you're giving us shit. Question from the chat before we go and hear anything like that. Was the toasted barley your homage to Scotch with your bourbon profile?
Toasted barley. We have done some. Oh, okay. We did some smoked malt in the rye whiskey, and I would say so. So, for example, the bourbon is more of a sweet and delicate flavor. And when we wanted to make a rye, we wanted something that was kind of a polar opposite. We wanted it to be good and palatable, but we wanted it to be real meaty and just big and full flavored. And we wanted that kind of to banish on it, right? That kind of smokiness. And that's why we lean to the smoked malt that we put in there. And we have done some with smoked malt and some without. And we found, funny enough, a lot of the smoky characteristic in the rye comes from the actual rye grain that we're using, not as much from the barley as we had thought. So we've kind of done a little bit of both, but I'd say most people probably wouldn't tell the difference between the two. So we're kind of happy that it's just kind of a natural quality of the rye that we're using, and the yeast and the distillation and maturation process.
Yeah.
Sweet. I was going to ask, what is the liquor you guys are the most proud of releasing? You know, it might not be just a whiskey, or have to be the one that you put the most time into, or the flavor. But what's the one each of you are kind of most proud of releasing underneath your guys' company? Sorry, I spilled on myself there. It's terrible. Alcohol foul.
I think. I mean, both of us are gonna. That's tough. That's why
I didn't want to label it your favorite, because I know people hate it when you get asked what's your favorite. But it's kind of like, what one are you most proud of the work you put into on it?
It's kind of, I think Michael will probably agree. I mean, I've got 3 kids. He's got 2, but it's kind of like, which of your 3 kids is your favorite? You know, it's like there are a few of our products that they're okay, but I think it's going to come down to whiskey for both of us. Rye whiskey, to me, I mean, bourbon is why we opened the distillery. Whiskey in general, but bourbon. But the rye has really been pretty, I don't know, rye and bourbon for me.
That's fair.
Yeah, and it's one of those questions where it depends on the intent of the question. Because, obviously the whiskey is the most important thing. But then also, some of the passion projects are things where it's like, we're in this stride for 4 years. Let's step out of the comfort zone and try and do something exactly the way we want it to be, but we have no history of doing this. And, in that example, like, I'm really psyched about the rum, because we've tried to do something that's not your typical American rum, and we like funky rums, I think Matt would say the same thing for our pet projects, probably the rum. But ultimately, it's the whiskey is all at the heart of this.
The rum, and the weird thing about the rum for us is that, in the United States, most of the craft distilleries they're whiskey centric and rum centric and agave spirit centric and things like that. And again, we're whiskey guys. We opened this up, but we started after we got open. We started to get into rum and started getting in those funky, in your face, punch you across the face rum. And we got into that, and it was like, well, we have a distillery, we have stills, let's do that. So that's one we're very proud of. And things like barrel aged gin, we don't sell tons of it, but the people who are into barrel aged gin are like really into our barrel aged gin, and we are too. It's something that we've messed around with. We've experienced every single batch of our barrel aged gin is a different type of barrel it's aged in. So, we play around with that a lot, and we're proud of. So we're proud of all these things. Some are more popular than others, but that's the name of the game.
And with the rum, and what type of molasses are you guys using? Like the blackstrap, or like grade A, like some other people? And if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to reveal any secrets.
No, we're an open book. I'll tell you where we get it. What our yeast strain.
Sweet sassy molassy.
That is what we call it. No, we use a heavy blackstrap, and after the first distillation, we collect what's left in the still, the dunder, and we'll let that sit in a tank, sometimes outside in the sun, and it'll. I don't know if this is going to help us sell more rum or less, but let a whole bunch of bacteria and a bunch of crap grow in that, and we'll use that in subsequent batches to adjust the pH and add that kind of funky character to the actual rum wash. So again, we're not going for this like clean, delicate, light rum. We kind of, cut our teeth on things like Smith and Cross, Hamden Distillery, big funky Jamaican distilleries, and a lot of those have this weird bacterial ecosystem that's been growing in their distilleries for 300 years. So we can't replicate that. We're just doing the best thing we can without infecting all of our other processes and equipment. We don't really want to have bacterial infection in our bourbon. So we do have to kind of keep those processes separate. But once again, it's just one of those things we tend to do it the hard way so we can get it the way we want it to be.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I was going to say, because I've heard, I just started getting into kind of rum a little bit more in depth. So I was just kind of branching off of that. But Nathan down in Texas, he was mentioning how Balcones does their single malt that's finished in a rum. And he was wondering, maybe you guys might consider doing something like that after your rum kind of done to fruition.
If it's cool, we'll consider it.
Yeah. Just like the way we said we kind of learned with Scotch whiskey, one of the things we learn over in Scotland and a lot of the distilleries is they're thrifty. They'll reuse a barrel as many times as they can. And we don't go to that extreme, but we definitely like reusing barrels for something. Just out of the fun factor, So, I'm sure that's going to happen.
Well, and he had a suggestion for the name as well too. If you call the rum Big Funky Jamaican, but I don't know. That's I don't know if that would get off the screen.
Galena.
We'll run that past our in-house legal counsel.
Don't want to be getting in trouble with anything like that. Do you guys have any releases that are kind of planned for coming out this year? I know things might have been put on hold or kind of put on like back pedal considering what's going on. But do you have anything else kind of new coming out this year?
I think some of the Galena Reserve we mentioned, the Madeira finished Old Fangled we mentioned. We were it was kind of midway through the R&D and test batches of the white rum I talked about. So, if we get back to that, I'm hoping we can get that out later this summer. Otherwise, I don't know if I forgot about something, but that's what I can think of right now.
It's one of those hidden barrels comes rolling up one day.
Yeah, pretty much. No, the big ones are the Madeira, like Mike said, the Madeira Old Fangled and that IPA gin that we're talking about putting out. We've been battling with the TTB about. That's going to be a fun one. That's tasty.
And it's always nice when you kind of win at the end with the TTB. You feel like I don't know if you guys watch Entourage, but it's like Johnny Drama going victory at the
right. Yep. We kind of become horses asses with the TTB, so we rarely win. Start to get in over our head and then we're like,
Sorry, that's funny. I can see me having issues with it too if I was in there. I've mentioned that before. I'm like, I don't know how well I'd play with them. We should really let someone else deal with them. I shouldn't be in charge.
Well, like for example, we've been back and forth with this IPA gin for so long, and TTB is now changing the rule about being able to actually put barrel age and an age statement on the label. But we submitted that, and they're of course they kicked it back. They're like, you can't mention that it was aged in a barrel. So we resubmitted the label like smartasses, and it was one of these just like, this gin was definitely not aged in a gin barrel. And we had a whole bunch of knots and gin, and we had asterisks that made it more confusing, and they were not.
I probably have that label.
They were not amused in the rejection letter.
Part of me would be like proud of the rejection letter at that point, though. It'd be like, well, they had to actually read it and really care about it when they wrote me back.
I've got it here for you. I'll share the screen again.
Okay.
If I can figure that out.
He did better than other people, so that's pretty sweet.
Can you see it?
Oh, you have to maximize it. No.
but that's okay. It's up there. I mean, I see it. I just can't read too much of it right now. That's all right.
I'll read it. It says, "This is gin from the Blum brothers themselves. You might notice that it is not clear like other gins. You might also think that there's a reason for that. But let us tell you, kiddo, this gin was definitely not aged in a barrel. If it was aged in a barrel, we would not be allowed to say so. But it wasn't aged in a bourbon barrel that went on to age in a double IPA barrel. So let's just move on from that. Enjoy." And then it has an asterisk that says, "Some statements may not be true, or not true for that matter."
Come, I don't know, man. I guess if they already complained about it, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Just picking on them like that. I'm sure there was someone who had a bad day.
You should make the rejection letter part of the label.
Yeah, the
So
background.
you should make the rejection letter part of the label. Submit
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, right. Submit the rejection label. Put that on the back. That'll be our back copy.
Yeah. Yep.
But we are getting close to it. We're a little over an hour, and we usually don't like to keep people on too long because we know you guys got lives going on and everything like that, and families. We don't want to suck up too much of the time. So I just, I want to say thank you guys for coming on. Like as I say, we kind of already went over what you guys have coming out, but if you guys want to plug anything else, or what's the address of the distillery or anything like that? You guys are good.
Yeah, we're good.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, we're good.
I dig that. Nothing wrong with that. So thank you to everyone in the chat who stopped in tonight. We appreciate you coming in and watching and kind of get acquainted with what these guys are doing. Because
people were watching this?
30, 40 at one point. So as it was going on, there'll usually be some more, like I said, pop on. They can check some of the stuff out, and we'll really do some of the reviews that we had coming out of you guys' stuff. Just the bourbon and the rye that we had here will kind of come out later this week. We'll link back to that and back and forth from. So if someone's watching one of those later on, they can come back and see what happened here and kind of get a better feel for the distillery and how much fun you guys are kind of having with it, rather than being bland, boring distillery owners. You guys seem to have fun, which we appreciate, because it adds that much more to going to the distillery. Like you're saying, you even like to kind of play with the tour guides at some point and kind of throw them a curveball from the back when they're doing a tour. I'm like, that's stuff you'll remember when you go there and experience it. That doesn't always happen everywhere else. You're like, oh, people are having fun here.
We have a full bear costume, like a mascot costume of a bear, and it has a Blum Brothers t-shirt, and every once in a while I'll put it on and walk through the tour as our tour guide is giving the tour. Just walk through with a clipboard,
doing inventory,
doing inventory, and just walk through and never acknowledge anybody on the tour. Just walk through and the tour guides have no idea it's happening. It's amazing.
Yeah, and if you were just there for the tour that day, you'd be like, maybe we drank too much before we came. Did I just see this shit happen?
Yeah,
that's the type of stuff that people remember.
We've seen that on TripAdvisor a couple times.
They have a bear.
They have a bear that takes inventory.
He's a smart bear.
He's a smart bear.
But like I was saying, thank you guys for coming on. We appreciate it so much. All the extra information,
anytime.
Kind of taking people down that extra level. If you're releasing stuff later on in the year, let us know. We'll be happy to have you guys back on. Let people know what's coming on, as if you're able to release some of the other stuff. I always want to help people get you guys' names out, because you guys are making some really great stuff. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We'll come on anytime you want. It's a lot of fun.
And from our den to yours, remember, it's not the size of the den that matters. It's the love of whiskey. Cheers, everyone out there.
Cheers.
Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3.